to the All Around Adventure Podcast, the show where you hear amazing tales from afar and the all-important life lessons that go along with them. Here's your host, Josh Guerrero.
Hey, what's going on, everyone? It is Josh Guerrero here, and welcome to the All Around Adventure Podcast. Whether you're joining me for the first time or if you've been listening to the podcast for a while now, I certainly do want to welcome you here. And I also want to thank you for being here today, just because I know that you're busy and that you got a lot going on. And there's also a lot out there on the internet these days that's trying to get your attention. But it means so much to me that you've chosen to download and listen to this podcast. Now, if you are in fact new to this podcast and you're not entirely sure what we're all about here, this is the show where you hear amazing tales from afar and get the all-important life lessons that go along with them. Those will be travel stories from myself, as well as the amazing guests that I welcome on this podcast. And I'm talking with travelers of all kinds on this show. I'm talking with elite warriors, digital nomads, best-selling authors, bloggers, adventurers, philanthropists, you name it. If they have a fantastic travel story to tell with some great life lessons to share, it's my job to seek them out and bring them on this podcast and extract their stories and life lessons through powerful conversations to help you level up in your life. And I have a fantastic guest joining me today. For today, I welcome back to the podcast my brother, Zach Guerrero. Now, Zach is someone who has had some amazing adventures throughout his life. He's lived and worked in Michigan's Upper Peninsula. He's lived in Costa Rica for a time, studying abroad. And he's also made his way across the oceans to take on even more daring endeavors, such as riding the Sahara Desert on the back of a camel. He's done island hopping in the Philippines and much more. Though things have changed for Zach during these past few years. Back in the summer of 2020, he became a husband. Not long after that, he and his wife bought their first home. And most recently, at the start of this year, the two welcomed their daughter into the world. And despite these changes, Zach still finds ways to heed the call for adventure, albeit in a different way than what he's done before. And he hopes to share his adventure spirit with his daughter as she gets older. And in this episode, Zach's going to tell us about how he's adapted his travel style to the changes in his life. And he also shares some tips and ideas for other parents on how to travel with children. And he also shares his thoughts on his future and traveling with his daughter. This is definitely a great conversation. It was great to sit down with my brother and talk about these things, and I think you all are really going to enjoy this episode. So with that, let's go ahead and jump right on into this, and this is my conversation with my brother, Zach Guerrero. All right, here we go, everyone. Another awesome episode of the All Around Adventure Podcast, and for this episode, I'm sitting down with a very special return guest. I got my brother, Zach Guerrero, joining me today. What's going on, bro?
Hey, not much. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's just, I think this is like, your third, maybe fourth time on the show, and this is actually the first one that we're actually doing in person together. It's like, I'm not sure why all the other ones are just, using Zoom or some other thing, so I guess I'm gone too much, I suppose.
Yep, this is coming straight from my living room.
Yeah, and, actually, this home is looking pretty good, man. I mean, it's just, I think you had the home, or you had just moved in here, I think the last time that we talked, and when was the last time I had you on? Was that like 2 years ago, something like that? Like around Christmas time, maybe, I think?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I can't remember. I thought we'd done it once a year, so I would have thought last Christmas would have been our last
Yeah, well,
time.
Maybe. But of course, last Christmas, I was also just coming off of my through hike across Michigan. So.
Oh, yeah, that's true. So, yeah, maybe it was 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but anyway, so you were in this house quite a bit. And, a lot has changed, even since then, even since that moment. So now, of course, you got the little one here. You're a dad now. So just that change itself as alone is a big one. So how's that been feeling so far?
I mean, honestly, it's the greatest thing that can happen to a person. So, yeah, daughter's going to be 9 months old. Her name is Raya, Raya.
Which people should, hopefully get the reference. That's what they mean. I didn't at first.
Most people don't. And that's okay.
All right. Well, I guess for those who don't know, fill us in on little Raya's namesake there.
Yeah, my wife is a huge fan of Disney. I mean, I'm a Disney fan too, but she's a kind of a nut for it. But so I was like, well, okay, we can toy with the idea of having a having a Disney name, and nothing really appealed to me until the movie Raya and the Last Dragon came out in, I think it was 2020, fall of 2020, maybe like April or something. And kind of on a whim, we were in Village of Birch Run, and we're like, well, let's go see the movie. And it's like, yeah, saw some previews for this movie. I thought it was really good. Obviously, there wasn't a lot, going on because that was the start of COVID. So we went and we saw the movie, and we were like there with like 2 other people. And I mean, the movie is outstanding. I mean, it's completely flew under the radar. There's just certain Disney productions that just get overshadowed by other Disney productions, and it's quite unfortunate. Like, another example that comes to mind is Moana and Frozen, right? I mean, Frozen took the world by storm, and it feels like 25% of the people went to see Moana, and that was an outstanding movie as well. But anyways, yes, we saw the movie, and we're like, well, that's kind of a cool name. Not very common. I mean, there's people named Raya out there, not pronounced Raya. And then, I don't know, it was maybe Caitlin was 5 months pregnant or so, and, baby was kicking around. And I think we watched the movie again, and we said the name, and Raya inside Caitlin's belly just started kicking like crazy. So we're like, well, she either really likes it or she really hates it. So we're taking it as she really likes it. So that was the name we picked right then and there, and we didn't look back.
I'd never heard that story before.
Yeah,
obviously I knew that, yes, it was based off of Raya and the Last Dragon, but not quite into that in depth, though.
Yeah, I mean, she was, we said the name, we're like, oh, hey, little Raya, and she literally was like she was doing somersaults in there. So, yeah.
There we go. And actually, you're right. It's just, for one, I kind of knew of the movie, but I did agree that it did kind of fly under the radar for quite a bit. But then it's just you did the name reveal around Christmas time, like maybe about a month or so before Raya was actually born, because you and Caitlin kept it a secret pretty much the whole time. And then I'm like, I still have yet to see that movie. And then actually, I know you and Caitlin had left that day to go someplace else, but like myself, Gina, and the few others that remained there, we actually watched it, like, because now we were curious, and I'm like, this is actually a really good film. And I'm like, this is an enjoyable movie. So,
yeah. I mean, the story behind it is just really, really great. I mean, it's all about, people completely different, coming together, in order to, achieve a common goal, and, I mean, the action's great. It's not a musical, which is a little strange for a Disney movie of that style. But I mean, the character designs were awesome. The dragon was a little annoying, but
just a little bit, yeah.
But I mean, just great movie.
All right, very cool. So that's kind of what's been developing over the last couple of years, and of course, I mean, when I think about your journey as a traveler, like up into this point, I mean, you've lived abroad as an expatriate before, you've been to different continents, you've come to see me, in North Africa, when you and I went to Morocco, and of course you've been to Southeast Asia as well. And when I say you lived abroad, you spent some time doing some study abroad work in Central America just as well too. So kind of going into this change in your life where you're a little bit more established into a home base. You got your home, you're married now, and then now you have a daughter, and you're, doing the whole fatherhood thing. It's just, was there any concern about like this adjustment that you're going to have to make as a traveler, where it's like, okay, maybe now you may not be able to just bump off to the other side of the world for an extended period of time? I mean, what was kind of sort of your thought process going in there?
I mean, I think as I've been getting older anyways, I mean, kind of the traveling abroad's been fewer and fewer to begin with. But in terms of, I mean, you have to adapt, right? You have to adapt to, new situations. People's lives change in so many different ways, whether you're getting a new job or, this or that, buying a house, so on and so forth. But, I mean, we've just adjusted, and we've adjusted appropriately. I think the biggest thing is, I mean, kids are adaptable as well.
Sure.
And obviously they don't have the same level of endurance, and they can't handle the same amount of stress that traveling brings, as an adult can. But you really got to just try to, and it's tough. It's tough, but you really got to try and make the kid adapt to your life versus the other way around.
Sure. Huh.
So, we started, the first...
I haven't looked at it that way before. But
yeah, and it's definitely I'm trying to think of the right way to put it. It's definitely easier just to, okay, we have this kid, let's just stay home. Let's just stay home. Let's just stay home. Let's just stay home. Oh, it's easier for the baby if we just stay home. But yeah, kids are adaptable. They're malleable, and we excuse me. The first time we took her camping, overnight camping, she was probably 5 months old.
Oh, really? Okay.
Somewhere between 4 and 5. So we took her camping overnight. We just did the one night, we kind of tested it out, and luckily, Raya's an incredibly easy baby. So for some people, this might not be doable till the kid's a couple years old. But, Raya's great. You put her in any situation and she's always happy.
Yeah, I've noticed that too. And she's quite pleasant to be around that way, for sure.
So that was the first time and everything went good. And then... we probably took her camping one other time, just for like one night, but then we took a week off at the end of August, so she would have been, February, March, April, May, June, July, August, so 7 months old, and we went to 3 different places, so, and they were all about a 2-hour drive away, so we went 2 hours south. Went camping with Caitlin's family. I think that was for 2 nights.
Mm-hmm.
And then we drove 2 hours the next day to Port Austin, Michigan. Stayed overnight at a cousin's house, but Mom and Dad and Victor and Missy and our nephew were there as well. So we stayed one night there. Came back, stayed home for one night. Just to kind of rest up and kind of recuperate, shift some things around in the car, and then we went up north, about again a 2-hour drive, and we stayed. I can't remember if it was 2 nights. I think it was 2 nights, maybe it was 3 nights. And Raya was a little trooper through it all. She kind of had a little stint there where anything that was over an hour in the car, she would start throwing fits, which is normal, so. Travel is slower, it's a little bit more deliberate. You might have to take more frequent stops.
Plan accordingly.
Yeah.
And leave that buffer time, like within transit and things like that.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So, a 2-hour drive might end up turning into 2.5, 3 hours, but, it's, it's harder, but, it's eventually it'll get easier again. So.
Yeah, and well, I think it's interesting that you bring that up because I feel like with a lot of people, I hear this a lot myself, where I start sharing my own stories of my own travels, and then a lot of people will say things like, well, yeah, definitely make sure you travel and see as much as you can because, once you get married and have kids, you ain't doing none of that anymore. It's like they say things like, Chuck E. Cheese, that's going to be your Rome, that's going to be your Tokyo, that's going to be your whatever.
Yeah, so. And I don't understand, why people say that. To me, it's rather silly, right? It's it's your choice, right? Like I said, okay, well, if you want it, after you have kids, if you want it to be easy, yeah, okay, you just stay home every weekend, whatever, that's fine. But yeah, like with the traveling thing, like when we were went up north at the end of that trip I was talking about earlier, we were camping with an old coworker of mine, a good friend of mine, and his girlfriend. Caitlin's parents were there too. But yeah, his brother just had a baby a year ago. I think his nephew was about a year old. I think almost exactly a year old. And his brother's name's also Zach, and he's like, oh yeah, Zach and his wife, they're like, oh no, we would never take our baby camping, and he's like, yeah, they never leave the house, they never do anything, like they're just like if they do leave the house, it's for a couple of hours, and they're like, oh, well, we got to get back home. We got to get back home. Oh, I don't want to stress out the baby, and it's like, yeah. So their minds were blown with like, I mean, again, obviously, we're very fortunate to have a very, very easy baby. But yeah, they were like, so we were hanging out, and it was after like the first night or whatever, and then they were on a lake, or we were camping on a lake, and so they went kayaking, and after they came back, I was just in a hammock, I was playing with Raya, and they're like, man, yeah, we were talking about it on the kayak. It's like, man, yeah, your baby is so good. Like, we actually feel so much better now about, having kids of our own and continuing to do this stuff, because they go camping a lot, and, it's a worry, but like I said, kids are, they can adapt.
Right. Well, and I also kind of think to some degree that it's just, and this is kind of me just putting my anthropology hat on too, where it's just like getting out and about and moving rather than staying stationary in one place. I would almost dare say is kind of good for kids. You think of like how humans have evolved for aeons. It was like out in nature, like out in the wild and just moving around and like with like nomadic tribes and things like that, where I even think like, today where it's just like we went for a walk just like around the neighborhood, and then just like being outside with the fresh air, and then I guess just taking in the different sights and sensations and things like that. I feel like Raya probably just took to that pretty well, just more or less exploring, I guess, kind of, sort of, rather than, I guess, just being in like a single small play area for a good while, So maybe that has something to do with it too, just getting kids out and about.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely want to expose them to as much, different stimuli as possible, because, once they hit a certain point, like their brains are always active. They're always learning. We never interrupt Raya when she's focused on anything, because she's learning. And even if she's, for a 9-month-old baby, she's a bit of a daredevil too. And so just kind of let her do her thing. Sometimes she gets herself in precarious positions, but it's like, just, be right there, be ready in case if, she's, gonna bump her head, or, she's gonna, pull something down on her. But, we just, just let her kind of do her thing. Cause they're sponges. They're always learning.
Right. Well, and I think that is the best way for them to learn, is getting them out about too. Like, I've heard similar stories. There's this one story I heard a few years ago where there was this couple. They took their two young boys. I think they were like maybe in like their early teens or something like that. And they took them sailing like all around the world for like an entire year. And they were just like homeschooling them the entire time, and then kind of like more or less taking field trips all the time. Every time they would stop at a port somewhere and getting them out and about exploring. When they came back and tried to go into regular public school after that year, they were like leaps and bounds ahead of their peers, because they had real world experience rather than just strictly classroom experience. So I think there is something to be said there, like you said, just getting them out and about, just, exposing them all these like sort of different things, within reason, of course. I mean, you're obviously not going to put your daughter in a situation that's going to harm her in any way. But it's just within measure, I guess. There's a lot to be said there.
Yeah, and it's actually let's see, it was Jordan Peterson. He had a quote where he would say something about like you can't interrupt your kids when they're doing dangerous things carefully, because that's when they learn. I mean, everything, right? They're learning how to move their bodies, right? So, there's when kids are climbing things, they're focused on climbing that thing, right? When they fall is when a parent turns around, sees them climbing, and then the parent screams and says, "Oh no, don't do that," whatever, and then the kid loses focus, and then the kid falls, right?
Yeah.
You just need to, Raya's starting to move on the ground, right? She's just learning how to crawl, right? So it's like, you can't really take your eye off your kids for a second, right? But yeah, just when they're, they're climbing on something, you just be there to catch them
if they fall. But just don't interrupt. Let them get to the top of wherever it is that they're going. So for sure. So I guess looking ahead a little bit, I mean, you're already kind of dabbling into, traveling with your little one with the camping and everything like that. But I mean, what do you kind of see like with maybe in the next like couple of years as far as like where you think, you may want to take her, you and Kaylin may want to take her, or certain activities, or maybe I'll even say like adventuring skills, like maybe do you want to get her in the pool to teach her how to swim like pretty soon, or things like that?
Yeah, we're probably going to start swim classes over this winter. That's something we've talked about before. Yeah, I mean, they have swim classes as early as like 6 months or something like that.
Oh, really?
And that's just, I mean, obviously they're not, learning how to do the butterfly.
Right.
But, it's basically you're just getting them in the water, getting them comfortable to the sensation. And, obviously as they get older, it's just rudimentary stuff, like how to not take water in your mouth, or like, hold your breath and stuff like that. Just really basic stuff. But, yeah, we're probably going to take him up to the Midland Community, or take her up to the Midland Community Center over this winter, get her in some classes just to get her in the water, get her used to it.
Okay. All right. And then, so what about like any sort of like trips or anything like that you may want to go on?
Well, I mean, we don't really have anything planned or anything really specifically that we want to do. The one thing I'm not sure where I stand on it yet is when to get her on an airplane. Mm-hmm. Some people like, they do that really early on, and it's like, anything under 2 years old, you don't have to buy a second seat. But I'm like, I really don't care about that. Like, I'd almost rather have the entire row to my family, like, and just get 3 seats anyways. But yeah, I don't know, because it's like with Raya, things typically don't go wrong, but also if they do go wrong, I don't want to be in a tin can stuck for 3 or 4 hours at 30,000 feet. So that I don't know about. I have to think about that. But yeah, I mean, as she gets older, obviously her endurance for sitting in the car is going to increase. So I think as of right now, probably for the next year or two, it's probably just going to be what's in driving distance. So for us, that limits, lower peninsula of Michigan, Ohio, Indiana. If that's what we decide to do, that might, my opinion might change on that over the winter or the next 6 months or so.
Mm-hmm. And then at that point, you may even expand it to go like past the Mackinac Bridge. Maybe.
Yeah, fortunately, we live in a great state with, a lot of different diverse landscapes and environments. So I'm not really worried about that, for the first couple of years, whatever. I'm happy camping and hiking and stuff like that. So that doesn't bother me at all. But yeah, hopefully we, bring her up into this kind of, outdoor lifestyle, and hopefully she takes to it, and hopefully she grows to love it and appreciate it the same way that we do. So hopefully when she does get older, maybe we can fly out west, go through Zion National Park, or
retrace some of you and Caitlin's old steps,
or anything, any national park, or even non-national park. I mean, we live in a big, beautiful country, and so lots of things to see.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
I mean, time will tell.
Yeah, actually, I want to say that I feel like Raya would do very well on an airplane, even right now. I was just thinking, as you brought up the idea about the airplane, a buddy of mine, Kyle Creek, he's an author, and so he travels a lot, like, promoting his books and his work and stuff like that, though, too. And he typically takes his girlfriend and their young son with them. His son just turned a year old. And before his first birthday, he actually has flown over like 20 times at least. And I guess just has done very well, like everyone. So it's definitely possible under the age of 1.
Yeah, and I don't think they have like the problems that they used to. I mean, 10, 20 years ago, or, and before that especially, there was always like, and I remember too when I was younger flying on airplanes, and maybe it doesn't affect me at all. Maybe I'm just talking out of my ass, but I feel like they pressurize those planes so much better, because that's really what bothers the kids, is the pressure change hurts their ears, and so that's what used to set them off. But I feel like that's not the case anymore. Like, I feel like I feel like when I was younger, the pressurization wasn't as good, so like my ears were always popping and stuff like that. But I haven't felt that happen in 10 years.
Yeah, I do remember, like, the first time I flew in a plane myself was when I went to boot camp, and that was back in, 2004, so gosh, like a long time ago. But it was, I would either have to, like, swallow to, like, equalize my ears, similar to, like, if I'm going down to a certain depth, like, in the water, or, like, I would have to chew gum or something like that to get my ears to the level. And then, like, if I somehow fall asleep before takeoff, I'll just wake up with this nagging headache because I haven't equalized the pressure yet. But it's just, I have noticed. I don't know when some sort of technology was introduced to counteract that. But yeah, just like lately. And I've flown multiple times over the past 6 months, with my new job. And I haven't had to worry about that a single time. So they got to be doing something for the pressure in there.
Yeah, I don't know if it's just, mechanical improvements or, what it is. Or, like I said, maybe you get to a certain age and that just doesn't affect you. So like I said, I could just be spewing nonsense right now. But...
I don't know. I think we're onto something, though. I think, we're onto something when we talk about, like, technology and pressure changes and everything like that.
But, yeah, also I think when the kids get older, too, I wouldn't be against, this is something I've thought about before. It's not really something I've discussed much with Caitlin, but yeah, I wouldn't be against, probably age 12 or 13 would probably be when I would start thinking about, maybe tossing around the idea of doing some international travel.
Mm-hmm. To like any places in particular just yet, or is that kind of still down the line a little bit?
Well, I'd always, obviously, Costa Rica has a special place in my heart. So, I think that would be a good place. I've never really been a, Western Europe type of person. So that's never really been on my radar. But yeah, like Costa Rica, it has a lot to offer and it's pretty family friendly. So there's a lot of cool things that you can do. I also think there's a great benefit too to taking a young kid from America to kind of Costa Rica's, compared to the United States, it's a poor country, but compared to the countries around it, it's not really. But I think there's a great benefit to that, getting exposed to, certain areas of the world where they can't buy everything that they want whenever they want.
Right. Yeah, for sure. Or, definitely having to put in some serious work to get, even some simple things, So, yeah, for sure. So it sounds like most often the traveling and the adventuring that you kind of see in the future now, having the little one, seems like you're leaning more towards like the nature side of, travel and stuff like that. But I'm sure there's probably going to be some room, I'm guessing, especially with Caitlin as my sister-in-law, that you'll probably find yourselves to places like Disney World before too long and things like that too, just as well.
Yeah, no, and there's definitely going to be some point. I keep pushing it off as much as I can, but yeah, at some point, I'm going to owe her a trip to Disney World. Mm-hmm. So, I'd like to wait until, maybe Raya's like 5, but we'll see.
Well, I guess at a certain age where it's like she's going to remember the experience kind of sort
right,
of,
yeah.
Which I'm not sure exactly what that appropriate age would be necessarily, but certainly I think, 5 might be, like anything before 5, what I think would be just too young at that point, so.
Yep, and that's where I'm at too, but yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, Disney World. Okay. Then in the future, potentially. But, all in due time there for sure. So, all right, bro. Well, cool. And so I guess before we kind of like wrap up this conversation, I know we were just going to kind of make it a short one here today, but I guess for any parents who, let's say, or like new parents similar in your position who, maybe haven't, taken the leap to like even maybe do something as simple as like a camping trip with their kid or taking them here or taking them there where they may want to, but maybe they're reluctant to, like any kind of like last little parting nuggets of wisdom you want to pass on there?
Yeah, I'm not really sure. We kind of covered most of it. Like I said, it's tough. I get it. It's hard, but yeah, I just really got to try and, especially if you had the lifestyle before the kid came, right? You really have to work hard to make the kid adapt to whatever your lifestyle was before.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, and of course, and even then, it's just, it's just that just maybe involving maybe like something as much as career, like, if maybe someone, let's say, is in the military, where it's just, that's just going to probably be a normal thing that the kid's going to get used to, is that, every like couple years or something like that, maybe new orders will come in and you'll have to change duty stations and move someplace else, or, you may move abroad very early on too. So it's just, because I meet a lot of people that kind of come up in that life, and it's just like, it just becomes something they just know, so. Yeah. Okay. All right. So with that, then, getting to the wrap up, I got my final 3 for you yet again. And you've answered these questions before, but I'm always kind of curious to see if your answers change at all over the course, especially as, you've been going through so many changes in your life as of late, too. So here we go. And the first of those questions is, what is your favorite place that you've been to so far?
Let's see. I think before, I
don't even know if I can remember what you said before. I should have went back and looked.
Before I would have said Monteverde, Costa Rica.
Is that the cloud forest?
Yeah, that's the cloud forest. So that would be number 1. I'll say a number 2 here. Oh man, number 2 is tough though, as well. So in the United States, I would say the number 1 place I've been to would be Zion National Park. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to go with that for my answer this time around, just to change it up a little bit.
I'd say Zion is probably my second favorite national park, and I'm sure you could probably guess which one would be my favorite.
Isle Royale.
Isle Royale, exactly. The least visited but the most revisited park that there is. So I don't know. Then again, I think it's getting a lot of traction lately, though. I think it's
I've heard this. I mean, I've heard that for the lower 48, but I also think it's kind of a back and forth between the dry Tortugas.
Oh yeah, dry Tortugas.
Well, because both of them are difficult to get to. You can only get to them by seaplane or boat.
Yeah, boat. Yeah, definitely. And then to get to the certain harbors where you need to take either one, they're way out there. So you're at it. You're at it for a while. So, but I think Isle Royale and even Pictured Rocks up there in northern Michigan have become a lot more popular these days. I remember when I was hiking through Pictured Rocks. It's just, how it was 10 years ago where you and I just show up at the visitor center, say, we want to camp here, here, and here. They put it all on one, permit that you just like strap to your backpack or something. Now it's like, if you don't book a campsite months in advance, you're not going to get a spot.
I'll tell you what, man, just, pro tip. Pictured Rocks is kind of overrated. I mean, the hike is great. However, the foot traffic that goes through there is... If you're in high season, it's not worth it.
Yeah, it loses its appeal really fast when it's so crowded. I mean,
because most of the time you're, because Pictured Rocks, the shoreline is basically a straight line, right? So yeah, you're walking on the cliffs for half of it, right? That first 20 miles, and it's cool, but there's not a whole lot of variation with how those cliffs jut out. There's a couple of really cool vistas, of course. Like Miner's Castle and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. But all of those you can basically drive. You can have day trippers drive to a short distance, and then they flood the trails. So Grand Island is where it's at if you're going to be in that area. Okay. I mean, I did that 2 Memorial Days ago, right? It's in the same area. You're on an island, right? So only an X amount of people can get to it every single day. And because I'm not as in good of shape as what I used to be, the trails are so much easier. But when you get to that north side of the island, you land on the south side, and all of the south side it's low elevation. It's all at lake level. But when you walk north, if you do a perimeter hike around the island, it's 20 miles, right? So it's a good
It's a good hike.
Two-night, anywhere from 1 night to 2 days, or 2 nights to 3 days, or however long you want to make it. But when you get to that north side, you're at the same elevation as what those cliffs are, and it's all cliffs on the north side. And the views that you get on that, you don't have you don't have the same color striation as what is on pictured rocks. That's why they call it pictured rocks. But yeah, you're just as high. There's way more. Like I said, it's not just the cliffs aren't just in a straight line. You have way more geography to look at, and some of the views you have on the north side of the island are outstanding.
Okay, well, good to know. Because it's just when I want to get out in nature, the idea is to kind of get away from people. That's the whole point of getting out in nature. But it's just when you get these natural spots that like you said have become so populated, with and so heavily tourized. I don't know if that's a word, tourized, but it's just there is some kind of appeal lost there. It's just
and and maybe you can agree or disagree with this, but so for hiking and backpacking, you really have kind of 4 levels of, who owns and operates it, right? So on the federal level, you have the National Park Service, right? NPS, which NPS operates Pictured Rocks, right? That's a national lakeshore, so that's owned and operated by them. But then you have USDA Forestry Service, which they operate Grand Island. So you have 2 different federal institutions that own 2 pieces of land, hiking, backpacking land, and just other areas that I've hiked that are run by the Forestry Service. It's just way more relaxed. They're way more to open camping wherever you want. There's sometimes you have to make reservations at specific, campsites and stuff like that. But when, I think you hiked along the Manistee River, that's on the west side, the North Country Trail. So I've done the east side, and they literally say it was oh, you don't need a group permit to hike as a group if your group is 99 people or less. And I was well, nobody's gonna come out here with 100 people.
At least I sure as heck hope not.
So basically, it's you Manistee River, you just show up, you hike it. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to make a reservation. Nothing. You literally just show up. You start hiking, camp wherever you want, and you hike back out.
Yeah, I was gonna say, Pictured Rocks, as cool as it is, to see. It's just that did throw a huge monkey wrench into much of my planning when I was doing Wolverine Walk, was because I, it's just up until that point. By the time I finished hiking for the day, which was whenever I felt like it or whenever it got dark, I would just literally just find a good place to stop on the trail and just start setting up camp, and then. And then once I got towards Pictured Rocks, I was delayed for probably about a good week in Marquette, just because I couldn't get permits until a certain time. So I was held off there for a while. So it kind of created a good amount of stress into everything. And that was really the only stretch of the North Country Trail in Michigan where I had to worry about permits, really. And then by the time I clear through there and I made it into the Hiawatha Forest or the Manistee Forest, it was just it was the same thing as before. Just whenever I felt ready to call it a day, just head up to the side of the trail, clear space, and set up my tent. So yeah, I do think, I definitely prefer hiking through national forests as opposed to national parks. In
right.
Some ways,
yeah.
so.
Yeah. It's and obviously, the national parks are all amazing and incredible.
They
and,
are.
And they deserve the attention that they get. I'm not saying that they don't, but because they're the ones that are on magazines, they're the ones that are on the travel blogs. So they get the foot traffic to match it. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff and even at the state level too, that's Porcupine Mountains. So in Michigan, the Porcupine Mountains is owned by the state.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, in my opinion, yeah, the Forestry Service, yeah, some hidden gems.
Oh yeah, for sure. So and then of course I guess it's just and if that's more like your style too, where you think you want to like maybe just disappear in the woods for a few days and just like rough camp for a bit. Yeah, I think the forest is where it's at. But it's just obviously I think there's a lot of day trippers out there, and I think that's what I think the national parks are best suited for, is those that want to just take a day here or take a day there and just walk in a little bit but not have to, but then only carry enough to where it's just like you have maybe like a small bottle of water and a few snacks, and then because you're going right back to your car afterwards, so things like that. So all right, well, cool. Well, that was definitely a cool rabbit hole for the first question of my final three. So good stuff, though, nonetheless. So moving on to the second question then, and this is kind of sort of in tune with what we've been talking about so far, and that is, what is one thing on your bucket list that you have yet to do?
Man. Well, okay, so I won't be able to do this. This is my new addition to my bucket list.
Oh, new edition.
So, unfortunately, I've married. Not unfortunately. It's kind of an air quotes. Unfortunately.
Yeah. I got.
Unfortunately, my wife hates roller coasters. Right.
Oh.
So I'm hoping I made a child who will grow to like roller coasters as much as I am. So my bucket list item would be to ride all the roller coasters at Cedar Point with my daughter someday.
That's a good one. I like that. So it is kind of interesting though. It's just like how is it that all of my in-laws don't like amusement parks or roller coasters? I just noticed that. Yeah, none of my in-laws like amusement parks. So, and I'm not knocking them for not liking it, because I'm sure they're going to listen to this. But it's just, it's an interesting observation. I just kind of noticed. Yeah, none of my in-laws like amusement parks. So I know. So you know what this means? It means like all of us siblings just need to, head down to Cedar Point together sometime.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's probably been about 5 years.
It's been a while for me too.
I've been there.
Yeah, it's been a while for me too. And then there's all these new rides that I keep hearing about, and it's just, so I'm thinking to myself, well, I'm not sure how they keep coming up with new rides since they're on an island. So I just
the designers and engineers they have there at Cedar Point, they're some of the best in the world. So they've been able to jigsaw puzzle the crap out of that island. They of course they retire rides, and like the newest big coaster, Steel Vengeance, that's built on the skeleton of the old Mean Streak.
Oh,
so they share. I'm not sure what the statistic is, but it shares like 50% of the same track.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, no, I didn't know that. And then I guess they also dismantled the Mantis ride, that stand-up roller
So
coaster.
they didn't dismantle the Mantis. It's actually the same ride. What they changed was they re-engineered the seats. So, because you want the same physics to go through. So all the track's still the same. But remember, that was the stand-up coaster, right?
Yeah.
So for anybody who's ever been on a stand-up coaster, it's literally the worst thing in the world. When it was the Mantis, I rode it one time, right? So you stand up, and they have this post that you stand up, you put your back up against it, and there's this bicycle seat that literally ratchets up right into your junk. And you have to basically lock your legs, so when you go through a loop, right, the centrifugal force is pushing you outwards. It's pushing you towards that seat. And the only thing that's keeping you up is that bicycle seat right between your junk. It was the dumbest design. So basically what they did is they re-engineered the seats. So you sit on a danglefoot seat like the Raptor, but you're sitting on a post.
Okay.
So so it's a metal post that comes up into the seat where your feet dangle. So you're strapped in, you got the shoulder straps, and it's super, super comfortable, like you're riding the Raptor. So
Gotcha.
Now, if you're a guy, you can ride that risk-free. But yeah, because the last time I was there, so it was rebranded, right? So it's not the Mantis anymore; it's the Rougarou.
Oh, Rougarou.
And it's such a shame that the Mantis existed how it was for so long, because that track is awesome.
Mhm.
Like I rode that a couple of times when we were there, and yeah, it's cool. It's a fun ride.
Yeah,
Now it's a fun ride.
Yeah, well, and for anyone who doesn't know, Zach here is actually an engineer, so of course, like, I could definitely hear some of the engineer come up the way you're describing, like the track and the roller coaster and centrifugal force and everything like that. So, but yeah, I mean, for sure though, I mean, it definitely warrants like a revisit, at some point too, because I mean. Like that was something that we would do like almost every other summer, a few of us. I mean, I know Gina and I we used to go down there like once a year together if we could make it, if we could swing it. So, but yeah, it's just I am kind of intrigued because I know there's like let's see, so there was the Rougarou rebrand, there's the Steel Vengeance, and there was one right by the gate, the Gatekeeper too that I heard about.
Yeah, Gatekeeper I think was built in 2015. That's a great ride too, awesome ride. And then the Val Raven is another one that they came out with probably in maybe 16 or 17. Most recently, they dismantled the Wicked Twister, but I'm not sure why they would do that because, I mean, it takes up such a small footprint, so they really don't get a lot of space out of taking that down.
Mm-hmm.
And then I know there's this year, the Top Thrill Dragster was closed down for all of 2021, and it's up in the air as to whether or not they're going to get rid of it or not.
Huh. I didn't realize it was out of commission for that for these past couple of years. So
yeah, there was an incident that happened in 2020 where when it launched, like a piece, some metallic part of it broke off and it struck a person.
Oh man.
Yeah, they didn't. I don't think they died, but they were hurt pretty bad, and so it's been closed down ever since. So, and maybe I haven't looked into this in a while, but maybe they'll just do a complete overhaul of the all of the guts, and reopen it. Maybe that's what they were doing this summer. But yeah, for 2022, it was closed.
Wow.
All year.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't realize that took place too, and of course that ride has always been kind of sort of like hit or miss, where it's just like if they don't launch you fast enough right from the get go, and you won't clear the hill.
Yeah, I mean in
the
first couple of years they had a lot of relaunches, but yeah. So for the people that don't know what this is, Top Thrill Dragster, go ahead, look it up. It's one of the greatest roller coasters ever made. So
it's a fun one,
and it's super simple. It literally lasts like 20 seconds. So you get put into a drag car style roller coaster car, and it's just a straightaway that's like 500 plus feet long. And so it uses all of like these electromagnets to basically launch you from 0 to 120 miles per hour in about 4 seconds. Taking you straight up vertically in 420 feet in the air to crest over this top of this hill, where you're almost suspended in the air for like 2 or 3 seconds before you plummet down, straight down another 420 feet, and then that's the ride.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's pretty amazing. It's pretty impressive. But yeah, when it was first built, I think that opened in 2003. Obviously it was very experimental, and so they had a lot of, there was a lot of maintenance. There was a lot of fine tuning involved to get it to launch successfully 100% of the time. But yeah, there'd be a lot of times where they'd launch and it didn't have enough power, and so it would almost make it to the top, so then people would fall backwards 420 feet straight down.
But then that would still be the ride for them. They won't try to relaunch them or anything. Yeah, that would be the ride. So, now here's a fun question for you. And again, some people may agree, some people may disagree, but I feel like if you're going to go to an amusement park of any kind, whether it's Cedar Point, whether it's Disney World, whether it's Universal Studios, name the park, Fast Passes is the way to go.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, you make your money back almost instantaneously, especially at Cedar Point. Different parks have different, like, designs of how their Fast Passes work, but yeah, the the fast pass at Cedar Point is a must have for sure.
Do you know if that one is it like unlimited, or is it just to like certain time windows for rides?
No,
or
it's unlimited.
Okay.
Yeah, so they actually have two different fast passes. They have like a general fast pass and then their fast pass plus. So their general fast pass excludes, it's typically like the 4 best rides, right? So
that would be like Millennium Force.
No, Millennium Force actually you can, but it's like Maverick, Gatekeeper, probably Steel Vengeance now, and then Top Thrill.
Okay,
would have been, they change it year to year. They might take a coaster out and put a different one in that's excluded. But yeah, the premium fast pass though, it's like an extra $40 if you're already spending $100 on a fast pass. It's like you might
it's just
you might as well spend the other $40.
Well, it's
because
just,
those rides are worth it.
Exactly. Well, my thought process is that if you're going to commit this time investment to drive from wherever, I mean, for us it takes us about 4.5 to 5 hours to get to Cedar Point from where we live. And, we're not going to go that far just to stand and wait in line. It's just, you don't go to an amusement park to stand in line and stand around,
Yeah, because, I mean, even on a long day, I mean, you're there, you can assume you're there for 12 hours, right? Like 10 to 10, maybe a little bit longer, a little bit shorter. But, yeah, I mean, there's, on a busy day, I mean, you could be sitting in line for the Top Thrill Dragster for somewhere between 2 to 3 hours.
Yeah.
And if you're there for 10 hours, not to mention all the other stuff, walking from ride to ride, going to the bathroom, eating, stuff like that, right? That takes up time as well. And it's like you spend $60 to wait in line all day in the hot sun, and you get on 5 or 6 things.
Yeah, exactly. So, and then these rides, like you said, like the Top Thrill Dragster, that's like 20 seconds long.
Yeah,
for a 2 to 3 hour time commitment, just waiting in line.
You're right. Yeah, and if you have the fast pass for the Top Thrill Dragster, at most you're probably waiting 15 minutes.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, because I actually have one of the times when me and Ben went, we had like a 3 or 4 year run where we went every year and we got the fast passes. And but yeah, I made a Facebook post and we were like getting on rides and like hauling ass to the next ride. And I made a Facebook post of everything that we went on, and it was like Millennium Force 3 times, Top Thrill Dragster 3 times,
wow.
Maverick 3 times, and then like from there, I was like Gatekeeper twice. We got on like 26 or 27 like coasters. I mean, added up together, right? They don't have that many coasters there. Raptor like 3 times, and like the amount of G-force I put on my body that day. I mean, like every part of my body ached like for a couple days after that, because it was just like I was constantly under G-force.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, because I did fast passes a few years ago. I had a buddy of mine from Europe come to visit me down in Florida, and we went to Universal, and we got like the fast passes, and just kind of the feeling that of excitement that we got of just like walking past like the express line, the fast pass line, there's like hardly anyone on it, and then we're like just zooming past like everyone that's just waiting in the general line, and we get to the front of the fast pass line, and we literally just like walk like right on the ride too. And like because the same thing with like Universal, especially like their Harry Potter rides that they have. Let's say they got like the Diagon Alley and the Hogsmeade like setups there, and we literally just like some of those rides there, those were like the long couple hour long wait rides, and yeah, we just waltzed right on pretty much. So it's just and it's just so much better way to go, because that's what we were there for. We were there to ride the rides. We were not there to just wait around in the line. I mean, even though like some of those parks do pretty well with making like the settings in which people have to wait in line kind of cool, you're still not there for that though. You're there to ride the rides, let's face it.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, with having a kid and stuff, taking them to there, it's probably going to be more of the focus will be more on the actual theme of the theme park.
Sure.
But yeah, I mean, yeah.
Still though, fast passes, that's where it's at. For
absolutely. Sure. Yeah, without a doubt.
Okay.
It's worth every penny.
Right on. All right. So that's second question. Now the third question, and this is a 2-parter. What is your favorite animal, and have you seen this animal in the wild?
So, yeah. So my answer to this is still the same. So, the wolf I mean, you could be more specific, whatever, throw a subspecies timberwolf on there. But so, wolves are my favorite animal. No, haven't seen them out in the wild. Obviously, we've been close to them before out on Royale. Mm-hmm. Heard them howling, and seeing their footprints in the mud and stuff like that, which is pretty cool. Sobering experience in and of itself. But I will change the question a little bit as to what is my spirit animal.
Okay, and so now how are you going to distinguish between favorite animal and spirit animal? Like,
so my spirit animal is different than my favorite animal.
Okay. Do tell.
So this is a self-deprecating humor right here. So before, when I was younger, I would say my spirit animal was the otter, because with how attuned I am into the water when I'm swimming. But now I say now that I'm older and not as slim, my spirit animal is a chubby seal.
A chubby seal. Okay. All right. Very good. All right. Yes, because you have told me before how you felt water was your element. So yeah. So you're not the slim otter. You're the chubby seal.
Yep. So. I'm the chubby seal right now.
Okay. I mean, why the seal? Why not like a chubby penguin or a chubby? I mean, whatever.
Look how a seal and an otter move in the water. I mean, they're both relatively graceful and relatively awkward on land. Although I'm not awkward on land, but so and seals actually really aren't that like they're not like a walrus, right? Where they're super fat, but. Just a seal is a little bit more girthy around the middle, and I'm just a chubbier version of that.
A little bit blubbery, Okay, yeah. So, all right, well, that's a first to come up on the podcast, a chubby seal. So, I mean, as a spirit animal, no one else has taken this question in that way before. They just tell me what their favorite.
Well, I mean, I've answered the wolf question 3 times now, so I figured I'll just mix it up a little bit.
Yeah, fair enough. All right, cool. Right on. So. All right, bro. Well, that's it. That's all I have for you. So, as always, I enjoyed sitting down with you and hearing your stories, and and always nice to do these episodes, especially as you go through these different changes in your life and how it you're adjusting your travel lifestyle accordingly. So, yeah, man, just thanks for taking the time for having me come by and interview you like this.
Yeah, it's always fun. I appreciate you having me on.
Okay, right on, brother. Well, there you have it, everyone. Another awesome episode of the All Around Adventure podcast is in the books. I hope you enjoyed my conversation with my brother Zach today. I know I had a great time chatting with him and getting him back on the podcast. And if you did, in fact, enjoy today's episode, make sure you share it with a friend or family member who you think will also benefit from it. And do head over to Apple Podcasts and leave us a 5-star rating and review. That'll get us trending higher, so that way more people can find this podcast and get some value from it as well. Once again, I also want to thank you very much for taking the time for being here today. I know you're busy and I know you got a lot going on, but it just means so much to me that you chose to download and listen to this podcast to hear what I had to say today and also what my brother Zach had to share. And I greatly appreciate it, and I certainly don't take it for granted. And that's all I have for now, and I'll be back next Monday with a brand new solo cast, so be sure to check back in for that. But until then, I'm Josh Guerrero saying be safe, happy travels, and always move forward.